Hello, and welcome to our presentation regarding the NECTO shelter BIM project. Haiti suffered massively from the earthquake that struck in early 2010. The country was particularly affected due to its lack of wealth and resources to fund a proper response scheme. It is evident from data and statistics that Haiti is in desperate need for a quick and affordable solution. Haiti is currently in the medium to long-term recovery stages of the disaster management cycle, where the focus is shifting away from building temporary shelters towards more permanent physical shelter. The NECTO shelter is one such modern alternative to traditional tents. The shelter has been designed with earthquake resistance in mind, whilst providing more stable and long-term solutions to internally displaced people. The shelter also has been designed to be able to be constructed by local people in a quick and efficient manner. In our primary discussions as a collective group, we established that there are many different branches of information that needed to be considered in order for the project to be successful. We initially broke the project into 4 main categories: construction, maintenance, environmental cost and impacts, as well as the handover of the project to the client. Each category has respective subcategories that are all interdependent and require communication and logistical organization.
With the project's central theme of information modeling, there needs to be an established understanding of who will be receiving certain information. Figure 3 shows that the literacy rates in Haiti are increasing, around 60% in 2015, but still relatively low compared to the 99% in the UK. Most of the population are not professionally trained and work using local methods of construction. As a result, careful considerations need to be made throughout the project development as to how information can be conveyed and interpreted by locals. For the project to be completely successful and on time, certain assumptions have been made prior to the design and scheduling considerations. Firstly, it has been assumed that the construction phase occurs in the early months of the year, where temperatures are tolerable for construction. The average Haitian family consists of 4 to 5 members. Figure 4 indicates that most of the population falls within the working age. A conservative assumption of 2 capable workers per household are available to work. This equates to 20 local workers for the 10 structures. It has been assumed that all representatives and volunteers at Shelter Global are competent and capable of providing basic training to local workers. Finally, the site required for the construction of 10 shelters, although being rural, is assumed to be a clear and relatively flat and open space where no major landscaping processes are required. Each of the main project stakeholders require information and design concepts conveyed in different methods. The 3 main stakeholders are the client, designer, and builder. The client, Shelter Global, requires information outlining the project scope and progress to define the outcomes of a successful project. The designer requires information to effectively fulfill the project outcomes defined by the client. This can be done through drawings, plans, or models. Finally, the builders require the necessary information to execute the plans outlined by the designers. This may be through construction sequencing or scheduling the different phases of work to be carried out on site. The first focus will be of the information provided to the client. The client will be provided with a project progress chart. This chart shows when each stage of the project should be taking place. The project progress chart is easy to interpret and can be carried on a person at all times when on site. The project progress chart also shows how many people are required for each individual task. This allows the project coordinator to designate members of their team to each task accordingly. Health and safety training is paramount to the success of this project. With local workers being on site, specific attention needs to be given to ensure they are trained to a standard where they will not be, or put themselves or others in danger during construction and maintenance. We began by considering what had the potential to become a danger during construction. These were unintended collapse, material handling, trips and slips, working at height, exhaustion, and personal injuries. Coupling the designated training at the beginning of the project with appropriate signage around the site, these risks have tried to be limited as much as possible. The proposed solutions and methods to minimize the risks occurring are seen and will be taught during the health and safety training at the beginning of the project. Moreover, the Revit model has specific information attached to certain elements that require extra attention. For example, the roof panels, in which working at height may require harnessing or prior experience.
This image shows the different elements of the NECTO shelter and their corresponding materials and suppliers. Where logistically possible, we aim to find suppliers local to Haiti. This was to limit transportation environmental impacts. However, considerations were given to specialist products, such as the timber elements, that needed to be cut prior to delivery. Acier de Haiti is the largest timber supplier in the country and should be able to manage the quantity of timber required. Moreover, the foundations were debated as to whether it should be a raft or utilise gabion baskets. However, after research, it was found that gabion baskets are subjected to wear and tear and require frequent inspection, which would not be suitable for this project. This video outlines the individual stages of the construction process. These stages have been translated into a construction sequence that can be given to on-site builders as well as sequenced into the Revit model. Filters within the Revit model accompany each stage of the construction sequence to allow each stage to be isolated and viewed separately from the rest of the shelter. The video provides a good initial representation to all stakeholders as to the outcomes of the project, as well as the main stages that will be undertaken. Two beams are joined using a connector and wedge. This procedure will be taught during construction team training. Utilities installation consists of installing the water butt, stovepipe, and external ladder. The construction of the walls includes installing bamboo inside the voids and pouring cement to form a bond with the insulation blocks. The roof system beams and joints will be constructed in a similar manner to the floor system. Windows will be inserted into the window holder after being installed in the roof. Guttering is fixed to the roof and connected to the water butt harvesting system. The small section of roof cladding is installed after the roof system is completed to avoid obstructing this process. Parts and dimensions will vary if modular parts are added to the house. Changes in the construction process will be advised by the staff members assigned to the house in question. Only staff members are permitted to work on the roof. A limit of 2 staff members will be allowed on the roof at each time. The client also requires information regarding the wider camp considerations. One of the key features of the NECTO shelter is that it can be modularly adapted and extended in size to accommodate for larger families. With Haiti having high rates of sexual violence, the proposed layout creates a safe community where all shelters are visible. Although the NECTO shelter does have earthquake-resistant design features, there are still chances that the shelter may be damaged or collapse in the future. Therefore, by spacing shelters apart, if one is to be damaged, the knock-on effects are limited. Maintenance is essential for the future functionality of the NECTO shelter. By providing locals with user manuals and guides for each of the maintainable assets, as well as some specific equipment required, the locals and occupants will be able to successfully maintain the shelter and its safety.
The total cost for the materials of this project can be seen in Table 1. At just over £7,000, the costs account for the additional costs entailed during the milling of the timber, as well as all delivery costs. Maintenance is essential to the long-lasting success of this project. The occupants of the NECTO shelter need to be provided with sufficient information so that they can continue to inhabit the shelter for years to come. The Revit model is of particular importance here. User manuals and maintenance guides have been added to each of the maintainable assets, of which the information within can be conveyed to the occupants so that they can maintain each asset accordingly. Thank you for listening. We look forward to answering any questions that you have.